Hi. If you've been paying attention over the course of my channel, my streams that I've done, you'll know that I really like Fire Emblem. I love the tactical chess type gameplay. I love the socio-political intrigue that comes with the stories when they're done right. But I think the thing that draws me to Fire Emblem the most is the characters, which I think is for good reason. The main gimmick of Fire Emblem back in the day was the fact that when your characters died, they were gone for good. So you had to actually, make the player care about your characters in some form or another. Today we're going to be talking about my favorite Fire Emblem character, Brigid. Ever since I first played Genealogy of the Holy War, I thought Brigid was just so cool. She's this badass pirate Robin Hood. She has an amazing personal weapon. But honestly, she doesn't get that much appreciation because her games have never officially come overseas. So I'm going to go over a brief little history of the character here, talk about why I think she's so cool. This is a bit of a self-indulgent video, but it's my channel. I get to do whatever the fuck I want. Brigid makes her first appearance in Fire Emblem Genealogy of the Holy War, the fourth game in the series released for the Super Famicom in 1996. Before making her official appearance, she is alluded to by her twin sister Edain, who joins in Chapter 1. Edain explains that while she was originally going to become a knight, she became a member of the clergy as it would allow her to pray for her twin sister, who was abducted by pirates when they were young. Both of them are descendants of the legendary crusader Allure and possess her holy blood, which is something we'll touch on a bit later. Brigid first appears in Chapter 3, Eldigan the Lionheart. And surprise, now she's actually the leader of the pirate group that kidnapped her all those years ago. Turns out the pirate captain adopted her and raised her as his own child. And following his passing, she inherited the right to lead. Her memories of her time as Edain's twin sister and as a noblewoman of House Youngvi are lost to her at this stage, since she was so young when she was kidnapped. Gallant and brave, she leads the Orghill pirates following the same values instilled in her by her adoptive father. Steal from the rich and give to the poor, like some sort of seafaring Robin Hood. By the time Chapter 3 comes around, however, her crew aren't so intent on following her, both because they want to pillage nearby towns and because they know that she's not really the captain's child. As pirates tend to do, they stage a mutiny and attempt to kill her, leading her to eventually meet up with Sigurd's army and, by extension, reunite with Edain, who she, again, doesn't recognize as her sister. Upon speaking with Edain and placing her hands upon the legendary bow that only she can wield thanks to her holy blood, she recovers her memories of her youth and agrees to join Edain in Sigurd's army. Now, let's talk about Brigid in terms of gameplay, because her introduction is actually really interesting. Once the mutiny is staged and Brigid is run out of Orghill, she's actually a decent distance away from the rest of your army and has to fight on her own for a bit. Chapter 3 is one of my favorite chapters, and one of the more difficult chapters in the game for this reason, as there's a decent chance that Brigid will just die due to bad RNG, plus the fact that she can't counter close-ranged attacks due to wielding a bow. However, using the nearby town's terrain to boost her ability to avoid attacks is a huge help. And although it's never explicitly stated, I like to think there's a bit of cohesion between story and gameplay here. Brigid's insistence on helping the common man as captain is karmically repaid by the town, helping to keep her safe from the mutineers. Once the rest of your army crosses over to the island, Brigid can have a conversation with Edain, which not only helps further her character, but also provides her with the Ufel, a holy weapon that only she can use. Not only is this bow incredibly strong with 30 might, it boosts her already strong strength and speed stats even further, making her incredibly overkill, being able to blow up most enemies with very little effort, assuming she hits. She's not a perfect unit, however, as her lack of a mount in a game with maps as big as FE4's means that she gets to combat a lot later than the half of the army that has a horse, which is a pretty big downside to have in this game. Due to the way Genealogy of the Holy War is structured, Brigid is only present for Chapters 3, 4, and 5, but can definitely have her uses due to the Ufel being essentially an orbital missile that hits from 2 spaces away. One of Genealogy's biggest selling points is the marriage system, where through battlefield positioning and conversations, characters can fall in love and their children become playable in the second half of the game. This trend that went on to define games like Fire Emblem Awakening and Fates started here. Brigid can get married to any which bachelor you want. Personally, I like to set her up with Ho-Lin for character and skill reasons, but she also has some interesting conversations with a couple of her potential love interests. Her conversation with Alec has her openly admitting that she'd kill him if he cheated on her. Her conversations with Jamka and Midir, however, hint at a bit of insecurity, since she knows that they had feelings for her sister first. They obviously reassure her of their love for her and only her, and I don't know, I just think it's cute. Brigid's children, Patty and Fabale, are both playable in the game's second generation, and both also have their uses. Fabale primarily serves the same role as Brigid did, with altered stats depending on who his father was, and even inheriting the Ufel bow, and Patty is your sole thief for the second generation, making her crucial for the game's money management system. But why did Fabale inherit the Ufel? Where's Brigid? Well, prepare for some spoilers. Genealogy of the Holy War is split into 2 generations, and at the end of the first generation, most of the playable characters are massacred. It's an iconic story beat, and there's nothing that you as the player can do about it. Brigid, however, didn't die. How exactly she survived is left vague, but she is left without any memories. She washes up onto the shores of Thracia and decides to take up a new name, Avel. During her wandering following her amnesia, she stumbles upon a slave market where she meets Marita, a young girl in chains. This obviously infuriates Avel so bad that she murders all of the slavers and adopts Marita as her own daughter. This continuous degree of chaotic good behavior and taking justice into her own hands, even after losing her memories, proves that it's not just the way she was raised by the pirate captain that made her this way. It speaks to something core to her nature, that she simply can't stand idly by in the face of injustice, and that is badass. Avel is one of the first characters you get access to in Thracia 776, a game that takes place during the second generation of Genealogy of the Holy War. It's a much more personal and scaled-down conflict within the ongoing story of FE4. Avel is essentially the foster mother of the protagonist Leif, as well as many others. In these early few chapters, she is incredibly strong, able to one-round kill pretty much any enemy. You lose access to her in Chapter 5 for story reasons. After being captured, she's forced to fight Marita to the near death, and is turned to stone before Leif can free her. Restoring Avel is one of Leif's primary motivations throughout the game as its protagonist. And guess what? By fulfilling certain conditions, you can. If you recruit Sarah and have her use the Kia staff on Avel in Chapter 24X, she is freed and rejoins your army. This is probably one of my favorite quote-unquote side quests in the series. Since it's completely avoidable, you can beat the game without doing it, but the fact that you have to work for and earn the right to use her again is just awesome. It's a nice little secondary goal to keep in mind besides defeating the antagonists and beating every map. She's obviously not as good once she returns since the rest of your army has had time to catch up to her, but once again, she's made a huge splash, both in the plot and in the gameplay of this game. Hashtag do it for Avel. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention her other appearances too. Brigid has been made playable twice in the mobile game Fire Emblem Heroes, once as Avel and once for an in-game pirate festival event. Neither unit is that great. In fact, her son pretty much outclasses her in every way, but it's nice to see her represented. Plus, Caitlin Elizabeth gives her a great voice that really brings her to life, which makes me want a remake for these games even more.
I won't prey on the weak. That's where I draw the line.
And while this isn't really an appearance by her per se, a country in Fire Emblem Three Houses was named Brigid, so a little callback like that is also appreciated. This also lends credence to the idea that Three Houses was heavily inspired by FE4 for a lot of its ideas. So that'll do it for a history of Brigid. It was very, very dense, as you can probably imagine. Only like 7 or so minutes of information, but I'm sure it was kind of a lot to take in. But I really, really love this character. I really love this franchise. And I'm really, really, really hoping for that eventual remake of FE4. That's kind of my main hope for this console generation. Hopefully it comes before I die. Let me know what your favorite Fire Emblem characters are down in the comments, if you have any. Or you could just talk about characters outside of Fire Emblem. Any sort of fictional characters, what draws you to them. It's always a fun conversation to have when people are, really excited about the characters that they really love. And that was kind of what my goal was here today, to kind of express that. In any case, I hope you have a good day or night, depending on where you are. And I am going to go back to studying, I guess. Fuck.